There used to be water here, deep water, the kind that reflected the sky so clearly you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Boats crossed it. Families gathered along its shores. Entire communities were built around the belief that it would always be here. But now it's gone. What remains doesn't look like a lake anymore. It looks like the ground forgot what water was supposed to be. The strange thing is that this didn't happen overnight. There was no single disaster, no dramatic moment when everything changed. Instead, the shoreline moved back little by little. A few feet one year, a little more the next. At first, people weren't worried. Lakes rise and fall, dry years happen, wet years usually follow. Most assumed the water would return, but it didn't. Year after year, the lake continued to shrink. Boats that once floated now sit stranded on dry ground. Docks stretch toward empty space. Marinas that were once full of life have become quiet reminders of what used to be. And perhaps the strangest part is how quickly people adapt. When change happens slowly, it becomes easy to ignore. First, people stop using certain areas, then they move elsewhere. Eventually, they stop coming altogether. What once seemed impossible begins to feel normal. But this isn't just about a lake disappearing, it's about everything that depended on it. Water is more than scenery. It supports farms, businesses, wildlife, and entire communities. When water levels begin to fall, everything around them starts to change. Farmers use less water, crops become harder to grow, restrictions increase, costs rise. At the same time, another force is making the problem worse. Heat. Temperatures are rising, summers are becoming longer, rainfall patterns are changing. More water evaporates into the atmosphere while less arrives to replace it. The lake is being pressured from every direction. Less rainfall, more evaporation, more demand, and eventually the balance begins to break. What once took decades can begin happening within just a few years. From above, the transformation becomes impossible to ignore. Satellite images reveal a lake shrinking year after year. The shoreline pulls inward. Large sections of water become smaller basins. Those basins continue shrinking until only fragments remain. As the lake continues to retreat, warning signs begin appearing everywhere. Boat ramps no longer reach the water. Access points are closed. Low water signs are installed. Infrastructure that once supported a thriving lake is abandoned. Each sign seems small on its own. Together, they tell a much larger story. A system under stress. A landscape losing stability. For people living nearby, this isn't a distant environmental issue. It's personal. Many remember fishing, boating, swimming, and spending summers beside the water. They remember standing at the shoreline where there is now only dry ground. The memories remain. The water does not. Wildlife is affected as well. Fish populations decline as habitats shrink. Birds move elsewhere. Plants along the shoreline struggle to survive. The ecosystem begins changing alongside the landscape. Less water often means less life. And still, the changes continue. Not because nature has stopped working, but because it is adapting to new conditions. Unfortunately, it is adapting downward. Less water, less stability, more uncertainty. At some point, people realize they are no longer looking at a temporary problem. They are witnessing a long-term transformation, and that realization changes everything. Plans become more cautious. Investments become smaller. Expectations become lower. The future becomes harder to predict. Because the disappearance of a lake is about more than losing water. It is the loss of stability. The loss of predictability. The loss of something people once believed would always be there. And perhaps the most important lesson is this. The biggest changes on Earth are not always loud. They do not always arrive with chaos or destruction. Sometimes they happen quietly,